Welcome to this week's episode of The Blaze Bell Show. Today's guest is Army vet, survivor, and bold, brave creator, Lacey Ernandes. In this episode, we dive into Lacey's complex healing journey from being assaulted in the military, healing tools she used to change her brain and her life, how survival really looks, and a lot of practical resources for moving through trauma. Thank you, Lacey, for bravely sharing your story with us. I know your willingness to be vulnerable will help so many others. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Today I have Lacey here with us. We got connected through Elevated Oats, an amazing company that she runs. And Lacey is a veteran, and she is here today to share her story as a survivor, and help us talk about healing from sexual assault and just healing in general. So thank you so much for bravely showing up today. So cool.
Thanks for having me, Blaze. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah. And so, I'm sure you reached out to me because you know that I do a lot of work in this area. It's one of my biggest missions to help other survivors know that they're not alone, that there is healing available, that life does not have to be dark and painful forever or at every moment. And so it's just a big honor to me that you're willing to open up and share your story. And every time we do this, I know it's very uncomfortable and also very purposeful and can really change people's lives. And we don't even always hear the feedback. So, and that's okay too. It's just I always trust that there's someone out there who is not comfortable saying anything to me, but they are getting some things they know they need, which again can just be knowing that they're not alone in what they're going through. So you are a veteran. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. Just share your story. Why did you decide to join the military, and what was that like for you?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I joined the Army right out of high school. I think I did a semester of college. But I grew up in a narcissistic household. I had my mom and a stepdad who raised me since I was 3. But he always worked. He was working, so he wasn't really anything but a provider, not a caregiver really. And my dad was not in the picture. He would occasionally come and pick me up. That was about it. I was tired of the abuse. So I went to college thinking, that's what you do when you graduate high school. You go to college. I wanted to be a psychologist at the time. And so I did one semester because I didn't have the skills, the life skills. I didn't know how to take care of myself because, my mom was not waking up in the mornings and teaching me how to put deodorant on and brush my teeth and pack my lunch, those sorts of things. So by the time I'm an adult, I was not very prepared.
Well, let's pause for a second.
Okay.
Well, so what do you mean with your parent? You said you're tired of the abuse. What was happening?
Okay, I'm not sure if you're familiar with narcissistic abuse, but it's long-term gaslighting, being made to feel powerless, being made to feel you're responsible for your parents' feelings, you're parentifying them, meaning I had to take care of her and my feelings are not important. Basically, I had to push them away. I was told children should be seen and not heard, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So I was tired of not having a voice, basically. Yes. I would actually, just real quick, I would get sick every single year with laryngitis or tonsillitis or strep throat. And that, I really believe that was because I was not able to speak my truth. So, and even my friends didn't know because I wouldn't bring them around to my house. I would go to their house, but so I was tired of the abuse, and I thought that college was going to be the way to get out of it, but I was not capable of handling college myself at the time, 19 years old. So I dropped out and then moved back into my home with my mom. And 2 days after Christmas, she kicked me out for not taking photos of everyone at Christmas. Okay. So I left, and then I left and I was living with a complete stranger, a 50-year-old man who was a truck driver, and just found a friend who knew someone, and I went and lived with him. And to rewind, a year before that, I had joined the Army Reserves, and my mom convinced me not to go, but didn't ship. So when I finally was like, I can't do this anymore, like now I'm sick. Like I had strep throat for like 10 days. I couldn't go to work. I'm like laying on the carpet of an apartment that has no furniture. Don't know where my next meal is gonna come from because I'm just drinking Pepsi and Snicker bars. And I joined the Army, and it's just like 2 days after Easter Sunday, I told my family. I waited and I shipped on May 18th. So it was like a week before I shipped to basic training. I told my family I'm going, and I left. And I have not looked back one single time. I will never move back there. But okay. So that's my story as to why I joined.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And I would think that you would probably find a similar stories, maybe not like exact, but like I definitely connected with people in the military who were running away from their childhood.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and how long were you like a part of that? And just tell me a little bit more about that experience in itself. For those of us that have never been in the military, it's like kind of a mystery, you know?
Right. Yes. Okay. So I joined. I was an air traffic controller, not the people who do this with the cones. That's a marshaller. I was an air traffic controller, telling planes where to go at an airport, basically.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of females in the military still to this day. But actually my first unit was 11, there were 11 females. Megan Militello was one of them. But that was a lot of females in one little 50 people company. 11 females was, and notice how I'm saying females, there's a whole reason why we're saying females. So not really surrounded by anything but male energies. And we were definitely told to suppress our female energies the entire time. Yeah. It was very competitive. And to be honest with you, if I knew a 19-year-old girl today, I would tell her not to join. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I believe, this might be too heavy for your show, but I believe the military is like the biggest drug trafficker or sex trafficker in the United States.
Oh.
Yeah. Because, okay, so my first deployment was I joined in 2005. And my first deployment was in 2006, so 6 months later after I got in.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was deployed, one whole company, which a company is like, if you can think of it like a company like McDonald's, to be honest with you. So like everybody who works at McDonald's, it doesn't matter the shift, one whole company got busted for running a brothel while deployed in Iraq.
Oh no.
And I'm only like 6 months in. So and we're young. It's prey for young people. Because you're going in like 18 or 19 years old, and there are people who are 30, 35, 40 who are running, and have control over you.
Wow.
But I have a lot of great things to say too. Sorry.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of great things, a lot of great skills, management, how to survive in a traumatic situation, obviously. All the air traffic control stuff, like my brain works differently now because I was trained to handle emergencies and not be stressed out about it. So that's great.
Yeah. Wow. That's intense though. Like that's a lot.
It was.
That's a lot. No, you don't need to apologize. I mean, I talk about crazy stuff, and this show is really all about healing. And, it's important to reach people that have different past experiences. And there's going to be someone listening to this who has had some similar experiences and needs to hear this. So, yeah. Oh, boy.
Oh.
Okay. So, there you are, 6 months in. So, how, personally did you experience any negative
Yeah.
things in those situations? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I did things I'm also not proud of myself. I think
Sure.
I posted on my own Facebook today, like people aren't ready to have the conversation about how many times women have had sex with men when they didn't want to, just because they thought they were supposed to or because they were scared. Um,
Yeah.
and I was young and I've done those things, and I've flirted with men not knowing that there was any other way. Um, what happened really to me was I was at one base while I was deployed, and my chain of command, the people in charge of me, said, "You need to move to this other base because this is where all the females are." I was the only female at my base, like with my group of people,
Oh.
I was fine, right? Because the moment I arrived to that next base, my platoon sergeant, which would be 2 levels higher than me, right? Picked me up and alone, which is not, you're not supposed to do that because they're driving a government, a Humvee, and you're supposed to always have, another person with you. But he picked me up alone, and I already knew it was not great. So put all my stuff in the Humvee, and then he takes me to his place, which is called a chew, and like tells me to go inside. And basically, I'm at a brand new place in Iraq, and I have nowhere else to go. And yeah, he wanted to have sex with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I didn't know what else to do. What else could I do?
Right.
And then I had to continue, like, basically. So, we have sex, which I knew it was assault. I just did it because I froze. Like, I don't even know where to go. I've like literally gotten off a plane and gotten in a vehicle.
Right. Where are you gonna run to?
Where am I
Out.
gonna run to?
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night. It's like 2, 3, 4 a.m. and no one else is around. But then so I had to go through the rest of my deployment with that person in charge of me. And yeah, I think to this day that person doesn't even realize that they assaulted me.
Well, they must realize the
Well, they
abuse
realized we
of
had sex.
power. Well, no, I just mean the abuse of power. I mean, putting someone in that position, that's not okay, obviously. That's, and, and I appreciate you saying, like, what else could you do? And, because there's so many people that are like, well, why didn't you fight? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you call 911? And it's like, there are so many situations where our survival skill kicks in, and the answer is not always call the cops or run away. Sometimes it's like, I need to just stay still and get through this moment so that I can survive. And I think that's so hard for people to talk about. But also, saying that you froze, like, first of all, you didn't have any of that. Situation is insane. Like, there's nothing you could
Nobody
have
should
done.
have those skills. Nobody should have those skills because it shouldn't be happening.
Right, right.
Yeah. But I definitely did not have them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's pretty common to freeze and just, it's shocking and so scary. And yeah.
Especially with someone too, I think.
Well, and a person of authority in another country, like that whole scenario is just terrible. So I'm
Oh, it's
sorry that you
totally.
experienced that. And I can only imagine how many other girls experienced that from that person. So that's, ugh. Yeah.
Yeah, icky.
Yeah, very.
Very icky.
So how have you, worked on healing or like moving through that? Or did you just kind of suppress it while you were there? Because what are you going to do?
Yeah, I did suppress it while I was there. I suppressed it for many years. Um, I've suppressed it for so many years that I got out of the army, didn't deal with it, and I ended up getting back in the army, having not dealt with it. And then my next platoon sergeant also assaulted me.
Same kind of position, like authority
Yeah,
position?
but I was a higher position too. So like we were more equal at this point. Um, I had invited him to my house just for lunch or whatever, not a big deal. And he wanted to have sex, and I told him no. And then he forced me and told me never to tell him no again.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was married at the time to another soldier who was in the same company. Like
oh
that, it was a
God.
big mess. It was a big mess. And so I couldn't even tell my husband because I felt way more ashamed on that one. Because, I felt like I've been through this before. I should know better. Like this is my house. They came to my house. And I'm like, man, I just made another bad decision. So I beat myself up pretty bad, obviously, about it. But since then, I've done a lot of inner work. I have, I'm just like down deep in spirituality.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about trauma and how the body, holds on to the trauma, and learning what my triggers are and how to release that trauma has been the biggest thing for me because I go into these flashbacks and I can't get out of them for days.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of like emotional flashback,
tell
but
me what that experience is like.
okay. So it's a little different than like a post-traumatic stress disorder flashback because those are auditory or visual. Like you can see a mental image or you can hear something. This is none of that. It's the disassociation. Like I am not here. It's like I'm tunnel vision inward, like anxiety. Um, and I will feel a certain like emotion, like depression or powerlessness or despair for days, not knowing that I was like emotionally triggered. And it normally is just around an event that was similar to that event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I over the years I've had the flashbacks that are like very much visual.
Yeah.
It's like everything kind of stops for a minute while this whole psycho
Yeah.
movie is playing. Yeah.
So
But
it's just like that, but no visual, basically. It's like your body knows and like your whole emotional mood knows, but you haven't like figured it out in your head.
yeah. And trauma is so complex and the ways that it like resurfaces sometimes in the most like seemingly random ways. Or you're like, okay, I got this. Like, I felt good for months, years, maybe even. And
Yes.
then, like, something happens. And I've even noticed it at times, like, the season's changing. Like, sometimes it's like if something bad happened to me in the fall, then I'll step out and be like, look at this lovely crisp day. And then all of a sudden, I'm like back somewhere else. And
Yes.
it's nuts.
It is nuts. And so for me, like in those moments, it's really important that I do some sort of physical activity to move it through my body and let it go. Because I will hold on to it forever.
Ah. What kind of physical activity do you do?
I like to dance. I'm not like trained or anything, but I just like to dance to music in my room.
Mhm.
Um, and I do art and stuff too, but that's not as releasing
Yeah.
as like dancing around. And recently I've begun like primal sounds. Just
Ooh,
like,
yay.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, and yeah, I'm all about the living room dance parties. Like, I think also with dance, you can pick different styles of music, and again, like by yourself. It doesn't have to be you're not performing. It's just that getting energy out. And I've done it where either I'm like having a great time to a poppy kind of song, or I'm having like an exorcism on the floor to some creepy music, and it just feels really great. It's like
Yes.
because we have trauma gets stored in our cell memory, so it's like stored in our body. And not just trauma, like anything really amazing that's happened, or really anything really awful that's happened,
Yeah.
which is why so many of us can like feel an anniversary of something great or something really bad. So again, yeah, reconnecting to our bodies. And I think too, anyone that's been sexually assaulted experiences disassociation. And I know at least I did, of just like, bye, like, peace out. I don't want to live there because it's scary now. And so I even set intentions like if I'm cycling, where I'm just like, riding my bike to nowhere as fast as I can, but thinking like, release the trauma, release trauma, release trauma. If anyone could read my mind in the class, I'm just like doing a thing. So we can make, yeah, movement really therapeutic for ourselves and just help our bodies. So I'm glad you said that.
which is great. I mean, like that gives me my power back because I mean, I've had problems like sexually. So I've had to retrain myself with myself,
Right.
that kind of thing, even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's powerful too, just so everyone knows.
Mhm.
Get a mirror, look at
Yeah.
yourself at climax and say, I am powerful.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you're talking about that. Yeah, I also like have a yoni egg. Like, there's a few things out there these days, and thankfully, more and more women are openly talking about, sexual empowerment and expression in ways that are healthy and beautiful and powerful and just for you. Not it's not even about the guy. The guy doesn't have to be there.
That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest thing is growing up, that's what I was trained. I
Yeah.
was trained that women, well, not trained, but that's the kind of environment I was in. Women are for men. You're not a woman. You're not an adult woman until you're married, where I come from.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I definitely had to reconnect with myself. I had to make sex about me for me to understand and take that power back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that have experienced abuse, any type of sexual abuse, have a complicated rest of their life sexually, unless they, consciously want to work through it. And I'm glad
Yeah.
you're doing that. And yeah, and I experienced, that. I probably still am. Who knows? It's COVID. I'm very lonely. No, I'm just kidding. But like, well, I was a virgin before I was assaulted. That's how I lost my virginity. So that's like even another layer of like, uh, um,
Yeah.
and
That's a
so,
taint on it. Tainted the whole kind of experience.
oh my gosh, yeah. And
Yeah.
it was something that I thought was going to be like so sacred. And to lose it that way, I was like, oh, nothing matters, especially not this. So I'm going to do whatever because this is meaningless. And, it just completely shifted my view. And then I became an alcoholic and an addict, and then I was just doing all kinds of crazy things. And I spent many years being promiscuous and not caring less about it. And I was like, I don't feel bad about it. You can't make me feel bad about it. Who cares? In my mind, it was just like, it doesn't matter. And now I'm kind of have swung the other way where I'm like much more of a prude, and I'm like, here's 10 things that you have to do before we can meet for coffee. But it's still, there's that process where it's like, I'm back to feeling like, no, my body's super sacred. I don't want to mix with just anyone's energy. I want to take things at my pace, all of this. And so I think there is just kind of like a roller coaster as
Yeah.
we reconnect to ourselves and try to figure out, who would I be without the trauma? What does my body need from me? And I even did like a womb healing session that was really wild. Like,
I'm about to do cord cutting next week.
oh, good.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Hopefully, they'll tell you how to just continue doing that every day because cord
I,
cutting is amazing.
I think I'll just be able to remember it and help everybody.
Yeah, I think so. That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you for touching on that. Um, one thing you're talking about was blaming yourself, like with, I don't know if you thought like, I invited him to lunch. It must be my fault. And as silly as that sounds, you know, to me right now, I totally get that that's where the brain goes.
Oh
And
yeah.
oh yeah, like, well, and I think part of that is again the survival of like, how can I keep this from ever happening again? Never invite someone over for lunch. Your brain and your body is like, how do we protect this person?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of like why those thoughts come in, but also it's just so damaging because it wasn't your fault at all.
Especially if you get stuck there. And I think people have a tendency to do that. Not because they mean to. I mean, I don't know if you've read any of Dr. Joe Dispenza, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, like the more you think one way, like your brain creates a path, a neural pathway. And like, so with that, it'll default there if you don't consciously try to change your thoughts. And that's important to do in this situation. So please, whoever's watching.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm a big fan of Mr. Dispenza and just rewiring the brain. I talk about that with my clients all the time. It's like our brains are super powerful and they think they're helping us. It's not about seeing good or bad. It's like, oh, Blaze likes to think about how this thing sucks. So let's just make it faster for her. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so right. We could just go back there in a millisecond now. Um, yeah, but and just on the flip side, we can change that. It just takes effort, but not as much as I think people must think. Uh,
Well, yeah, I think it's
just
like
consistency and like baby step consistency.
it sounds really big,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. It's just take it one moment at a time.
Another thing that you brought up was shame. So, I think shame, in my opinion, is one of the worst feelings, emotions that us humans ever have. I think it keeps us so stuck and feeling just so badly about ourselves and also leading to so much self destruction. And, my big mission is to help people feel empowered. And I feel like shame is almost the opposite of that. And so, what are your thoughts on shame and like what are some of the main things you've done to move through that and also not like sink back into it?
Yeah, this shame is a big one. Like I've had to consciously work through shame because I mean, it's one of like the low vibration frequencies, I guess you could say, and it makes me feel heavy. I've been so shameful that like I felt heavy. Like I felt depressed. I don't know if anyone's ever described what depression has felt like for them, but I mean, I felt sluggish, like heavier as a person. Um, so for me, I do a lot of writing to work through some things. I find the act of like seeing it and then like physically writing it to be releasing, and then I'll either just like soak it in a bowl of water and like throw it away or just like burn it and get rid of the shame. Literally physically get rid of the shame. Like it's a way to put physical action behind what you're doing, and I think make it more concrete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, writing, and then I've never thought of soaking it in water. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, the ink. So the ink, if you write it in pen, like the ink will all smudge, and so it's
Mm.
like not there anymore. It's
I
like
guess it's
washed all
melting
away.
it away.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
I have gone the pyro route a few times though. I like
yeah.
lighting stuff on fire.
Yes, that's fun.
But yeah, really putting pen to paper, I mean, whether you're setting intentions and creating a dream life or releasing things, I think it's much more powerful than just thinking it or even saying it. Yeah.
Because then you can like look back. A lot of times I'll even like discover feelings I didn't really know I had. I'm just like stream of consciousness just going. And when I look back and read what I've said, like I'll look at it from a perspective as a friend. Like, would I want my friend to talk about themselves this way?
Mm.
And no, I would not. I would definitely stop them in their tracks. Like I'm a very empathetic person. Like I will tell people, like, don't you think about things like that? But it's hard for me to do it myself, which is why I do have to write it down and then go back and look.
Yeah. Going back, did you ever take any like legal action against like with any of your assault situations?
No, and like the worst part let me just tell you this, is when you're in the military and you're assaulted by someone in the military, there is no legal action to take. There's a process through the military that you have to go through.
Hmm.
Not sure if anybody can actually take legal action outside of, but I mean, we sign a piece of paper that says you're under military law now. We don't follow
Okay.
directly under the court system anymore. Like we could get double jeopardy technically. Like if I get a W, like a driving under the influence, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can get it from the county or I can get it from the military, but it's for a different reason.
Okay.
So a lot of the places I were would work directly with the military. So say I went and got seen, did a rape kit at the hospital, they would call the military,
Mm-hmm.
a unit, and let them know, and then they would pursue it that way.
Okay. And
Yes.
I'm guessing that that could be a very complicated route to take and maybe not the right one for everyone. And I think, that's okay to talk about too, because going back to like, well, why don't people just fight and call 911, or well, why didn't you get them arrested? And it's like, again, your self-preservation is really important, and
Why,
there's not
why would
just
I
a
want to? In that situation, why would I want to? It's like dragging me through it longer. You know, I'm in a system now. And so like it's called SHARP training or SHARP sexual harassment and assault response prevention, I think. I don't remember the whole
Mhm.
acronym, but basically, you know, they'll start an investigation and this could take years to the point where I could get out of the army and then they'll call me back and be like, can you come and do this court martial? I don't want to do it. I don't want to keep going through it. I just want to heal.
Yeah. Well, and you were saying, you were married.
Yeah.
Like there was just, and it's not like that's an affair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like I need to tell my husband because I'm leaving him for this person I love. It's like, no, this is never going to happen again because now I have a million more boundaries and I want to forget this ever happened. So I think it's really important just for, all of us in our communities to not shame someone for the choices they made in moments of crisis because every
Yeah.
situation is different.
Yes, I think a more like trauma informed approach would be like, I'm sorry that you went through that. Is there anything I can do to help? You know, like that would be better. That would be
Yeah.
better than why didn't you do this? Well,
Right.
maybe I didn't think about it at the in the moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, of course, a lot of people are well intentioned with their badgering questions. They just want you to be okay, but it's important to find people that are going to be non-judgmental, and I think that's a big thing that I try to encourage anyone who's gone through this. I feel like there are a lot of people that have secretly experienced these things and never told anyone. And that's because these types of conversations aren't happening very often or not publicly because it is shameful, because it's really challenging to talk about. Like you and I are probably going to have to do some self care things tonight
Yes.
just to, like, release our own feelings about talking out loud about these things.
Girl, I was having anxiety about doing it.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, so
And
I definitely know.
yeah, and I completely understand that. And that's why I say like it's so brave of you to choose to do that. Because on the flip side, you and I are both sitting here because it is so important for both of us to make sure other survivors know they're not alone and that there is hope. And as much as you and I have stories that are really traumatizing and rough, we still are sitting here in our lives today. We've laughed 10 times during this. There's still a lightness to us. And people can return to that light or create it and do that healing work. And so, I'm also going to put a bunch of links and like send me any if you have of just different resources of things that specifically have helped you, whether it's podcasts, Joe Dispenza, meditations, or books, all the different things. This is a good time to start to wrap up. This is a heavy topic. We can always return to this. We could do a part two if people have specific questions, or if there's a part of this where we just really want to go deeper into one topic. We can do that. But what are just kind of some final words from you to anyone who's listening, who's basically you 10 years ago, or I don't know the timeline of all these things, but you a few steps back, listening, who's still really struggling, still hiding a lot? What would your message be to them?
My message would be to invest in yourself. That's the best thing that I think anyone can do in this circumstance is like put your priorities first, like really put your foot down and draw some boundaries to put yourself, your mental health, your body first, because the society we live in has not, and it's up to us to change that.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. You're going to inspire so many people. I really, really appreciate this. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, drop a comment, leave a review, or DM me so we can keep this conversation going. You can find me on social media at BlazeBellBliss and check out blazebell.com for tons of healing inspo, courses, and resources. Thanks for listening, friends. See you next time.